My name is Josh Miller. I own Riverstone Kennels, and I've been training gun dogs for more than 16 years. I have field trialed, I've hunt tested, but at the end of the day, I'm a duck hunter. You might find that the duck in our DUK Dogs podcast is spelled uniquely. The UK stands for my British Labs. I love my British Labs. I love what they offer me, both as a part of my family and the high motor in the field. As you're going to find, I have some pretty special dogs. Follow along in our podcast series here as we talk about both in the field hunting and in the field training situations that will hopefully help you progress with your dog at home. Welcome back to the new year here, everybody. Welcome back to DUK Dogs. I'm your host, Josh Miller. And before I get going, I want to thank Eukanuba. Eukanuba Premium Performance Sport 3020 is what I am feeding my dogs, is what I feed the kennel, and I would highly recommend it to anyone out there looking for a high-quality premium food to put your four-legged hunting partner on. Also going to give a shout-out to Sitka because after I get done with this, I need to go pack so I can head west, so I can go out to Montana and hunt with my boys out at Sitka. So really, really excited for that. If you guys are looking for, it is the best gear that's out there. So go check it out, www.sitkagear.com. Also great people in that company. So I hope you guys had a great New Year. Hope you guys had a great New Year's Eve into New Year. And what I love about the first part of the year is that it seems like there's so much rejuvenated energy, right? This motivation, this new me, this I'm going to crush this year. And I just get so pumped up to be around that. I think there's so much to be said about energy. I love surrounding myself with very positive energied people. And I really believe thoroughly that you are who you surround yourself with, not just morals, but energy is part of that. And so I love that. I love all this. Now, I don't love watching that enthusiasm and watching that motivation and dedication dwindle throughout the year. But for now, it's something that I really appreciate. And so one thing I wanted to just share with you guys, because I think this is a big deal for me, is how I set up each year as it pertains to my personal goals and kind of how I'm going to move forward. And there's kind of a cool story about this year as I kind of reflect back. So first off, I always call it New Year, New Goals. And so I'm very goal-oriented. For those of you that have followed along here, you've probably picked up that I love writing things down. I'm a big note taker. I love putting things down. And here's what's so cool about goals and writing things down. And here's why this is so important. There are a bunch of studies that are out there. I've heard 50%. I've heard 42%, which I think 42 is probably more the right number. 50 sounds like a little more of a canned answer. But let's go 42%. You're 42% more successful in accomplishing goals if you write them down. Okay, that's what the statistics say. That's not a number that I'm making up. 42%. So for easy math, let's just round up to 50. So if you have your goal set in your head of what you want to accomplish this year, and I told you that if you just simply wrote it down, that you'd be 50% more likely to accomplish it, why wouldn't you do that? So many people I know, especially this time of year, they're very, enthusiastic. I'm gonna lose that weight. I'm gonna get back in shape. I'm going to, get that promotion. I'm gonna buy that new car. I'm gonna finally build that house. I'm gonna do all this stuff. But life tends to get in the way, and that enthusiasm gets distracted, and that motivation goes down, and you end up a year from now not accomplishing what you wanted. I'll go as far, so I have, I do this with my employees too, which I think is probably one of the biggest reasons that we as a team have been successful as a business and as a team. And business-wise is one thing, love that. Love my business, I'm very business-minded. I love that side of things. But as a team, I have watched my employees elevate further than what they ever thought they could in a much shorter period of time because we do this. So for my employees, I've always wanted to do more, but I always, I don't want to be overly pushy on it. So I do what I think is a relatively easy, achievable goal list. So we do 3 12-month goals, we do 1 3-year goal, and we do 1 5-year goal. Now, what we're trying to do is we're trying to set ourselves up so we know where we're going, and let's create that path. And for me as an employer, I can't help you achieve your goals if I don't know what they are. So sometimes depend on the employee. Sometimes these stay strictly business. Sometimes these get very personal. And it all depends on, I leave it open. However you would like to share this with me, however I can help you, I want to do that. And it's so incredible. Some of them have, I want to own a house. Some of them it's, I want, to be, this level in the business. Some people, decide that they want to do a different career path and here's how it's going to look. And it's really fun for me to be involved in that. But I believe that writing them down is what allows us to do that. Now, in the business, I do quarterly check-ins. So quarterly, we meet about this, we talk about it, and we strive together to achieve. And if we achieve, say one of the 12-month goals specifically, well, these stay fluid. So we achieved it. Let's cross out. Let's make another one. Let's not knock these 3 things out for the year and be like, oh, I'm done. It helps us move forward. It helps us keep determined, keep motivated, keep disciplined, which is probably the biggest thing. Discipline for me, I am sitting here right now recording this podcast instead of watching my Jaguars play, which, now, to be fair, part of that is because I even though the game is just starting, I already know what the outcome is going to be today. But being a true fan, I would like to, cheer on my team, watch them attempt to play. But it's one of those things for me. I know that I need to pack. I know I'm going to be gone all week. And if you recall from the last episode, I dedicated to you guys that I was going to do a better job this year, not missing weeks. Well, I would have missed this week if I don't do this, right? So, just staying disciplined, on your commitments. Specifically, these goals are commitments to yourself. So, for me, I take my personal goals. I take them very seriously. I've written them down ever since I was in college. And it's something that I truly believe is what pushes me. And I'll put them on notes in my phone. I will print them and put them in, I have a notebook that I carry around everywhere. I'll put them in there. I've laminated, I didn't do this last year, but I usually will laminate and tape my goals inside my closet. So every time I go in my closet to get dressed every morning, they're right there. That's how I accomplish these. They're in my face. I see them. And if I'm failing or if I'm not actively every day moving in a direction to accomplish these goals, then I'm failing. And I feel like I'm being lazy. And I feel like I'm not, doing what I committed to myself. So anyway, goals are a major part of, my mindset when I work towards elevating anything. Here's what's so funny to me. Try not to get emotional during this because this is kind of a big deal to me. But like I said, I've done these goals ever since I was in college. And as I was thumbing through, I have a spreadsheet, or I guess a document rather, that I keep all my goals in. I just think it's a sentimental thing to look back and go, well, this is how far you've come in this amount of time. Like, these were your goals. So I was looking through them as I'm putting my goals together for 2022 now. And I came across one that I thought was really funny. So all the way back, this is my 2008 goals. I'm not going to share all of them with you, but there's a couple here that kind of make me smile. So one, this would have been my freshman year in college. One was earn a starting spot in the lineup. This would have been, for the baseball team. And I did that. I was the only freshman, to be in the starting lineup come opening day. Check that one off. Number two, have $1,000 in my bank account. Now, this was a big deal, right? Because I didn't come from a family that was, overly wealthy. I didn't come from, nobody was giving me a dime for anything. And I'm going to college. I'm, a student athlete. I've got my truck payment, fuel, books, everything. I was working at an archery shop at the time, so I was trying to, make as much money as I could in the little bit of free time I had. This was a really tough one, but you think about, I just kind of smile and look back and be like $1,000. Like that was borderline unachievable at the time. Again, just kind of crazy how, I'm not certainly not saying that I'm a mega millionaire, right? But it is something that as I look at it, I go, look at how far I've come, right? Now here's the one that gets me. This next one was get Easton a pintail retrieve. So if you follow along, you know who Easton is. Easton was my first real gun dog. The dude, won a number of field trials. He, was master hunter retriever champion. The dude was an all-star, in spite of me, not because of me. Go back and listen to one of Easton's stories. I won't go too far into it because then I will get emotional. I'm not going to. I'm going to try not to anyway. But get Easton a pintail. This was something, again, I come from, a family that's not a waterfowl family. We hunted Wisconsin. It was mallards and wood ducks was pretty much it. Like pintails were, it was like a dream for me. How in the world can I shoot a pintail? And so in college, I started trying to travel. And so traveling in college meant we get, I think on one of our trips, I think we had 9 buddies. We all went out to North Dakota on public property, and we're just, overall, the group had no clue what they were doing. It was a complete cluster. I remember there was one trip, I think it was actually that trip, I think we had 9 guys. We all crammed into one little motel room because none of us had any money. Crammed into one little motel room, and in the middle of the night, an alarm starts going off. Beep, 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 beep. One of the guys jumps up, and there was it was a sketchy motel, but there were lamps that were like affixed to above the headboard of the beds, and he jumped up. When he did that, he shattered the light bulb, and so it's just chaos in the middle of the night as we're trying to figure out what's going on. It's dark. Now we don't have a light, and so anyway, that morning, after everything kind of settled down, I'd figured out it was the carbon monoxide alarm with 9 dudes and Easton all in this tiny little room. It was it was not a great trip, but we killed some ducks, no pintails, and this was 2008. So this would have been our the first trip that I thought I was going to try to go get Easton that pintail. Every single year that I had Easton that he wasn't in what I'm going to call retirement, every single year, every one of my goals changed, except for get Easton that pintail. That was the one that it still bothers me today. It was the one goal that I just could not achieve. It was like whenever I thought we had it, the birds didn't work right, or somebody missed, or there's one in particular that we were on a hunt in North Dakota, just me and a couple of buddies, and we split up. Well, of course, I'm in the group that we didn't shoot a pintail. And naturally we come back, and one of my buddies like, just throw him one in the water so you can get that one out of the way. It's not the same, okay, so he retrieved a pintail because we threw it for him, but it wasn't the same. That wasn't the goal. Right, that wasn't why I was doing it. So, I went through Easton's whole life. And as I was looking at that, my first thought was, gosh, it frustrates me that I failed on that. And then what happened was kind of a funny thing. I sat and I started reflecting more and more and more on these hunts. Like, it started with how I failed Easton. And then I started thinking about all these hunts and all these retrieves and all these, competitions and everything. And I literally just sat and just my mind wandered on all the things that Easton did. So yeah, that goal is a fail. But I think what it gave me was more powerful than what that pintail would have been. Because if we check that one off the list, I probably don't reflect. Probably not at all. Certainly not as hard as seeing it year after year after year after year and letting that one irk me. Probably doesn't give me that time like I had here just yesterday, sitting and reflecting, going, that was fun. That was special. Letting those Easton memories live on. It's cool stuff. It's really cool. But let's bring it back to dogs for a second. Goals with my dogs are very important, as they should be for you too. And no matter where you're at with your dog in their career will dictate what your goals look like. You could be looking at, purchasing a dog, what that looks like. You could be, having that finished dog. Then now you're really looking at, where do we go from here? What goals, do we want to achieve? And is it titles? Is it hunts? Is it, situations? Whatever it is. You could be having that young dog develop. Okay, so I've got a, 7-month-old dog. By the end of the year, I want to be doing, doubles and triples and completely steady and honoring, whatever it is, right? It's a fun thing, but again, write it down. Write it down to make sure you hold yourself accountable. Be disciplined. Goals are huge. I'm telling you, goals are huge. I'm going to switch gears as I do. I want to thank Lucky Duck. Lucky Duck has the 5-star crash test rated kennel. The dogs I'm bringing out to Montana, I think I'm going to bring Brock, and I'm going to bring Solo. Solo's going to sit, and he's going to watch a couple, more hunts. Great opportunity, great situation. He can see it's going to be out in the open. They will be riding back and forth in the Lucky Ducks. So check them out, www.luckyduck.com. Also, thank you to Gun Dog Supply. Gun Dog Supply is your one-stop shop for all of your dog training and hunting needs. So go check them out, www.gundogsupply.com. So as I switch gears here, I'm actually going to do something that I don't think I've ever done before. New year, new plan, right? New goals. I'm going to bring someone on that is not Whitney and have them help me tell a story. And so I want to give you a little background on this individual. So who I'm having on is Bret Ayers. Bret doesn't know he's coming on yet, but he's coming up here today, and he's going to go out with me to Montana. Bret is an incredibly talented photographer, videographer. We're going out, when we're out in Montana, we're going on a lot of these hunts. We document, we try to get as much content as we can to give to you guys. So he's driving up from Ohio today. He'll be here, I'd say in a few hours. And he doesn't know that I'm going to spring this on him yet, so this will be kind of fun, for me. But as I go through this, I want him to tell the story of his dog, Timber. And so Timber is a dog from us, is a Brock Sage puppy, and it's a very interesting and kind of wild ride that he goes on. Bret, for a little background, again, wicked talented photographer, videographer, just a great content creator, great marketing brand person, and a great person overall. I first met Bret years ago at SHOT Show. I think he was there for Sitka, if I remember right. And he's just one of those guys that within a very short time of talking with him that he's just a good person. And I really enjoy surrounding myself with very good people. And Bret is that. And Bret has become very close with me and my family and myself and he and his family. And so it's just kind of fun that we can do this business stuff together on top of it. But as he comes here, that's kind of my prep. Really listen to the process. You've heard me say, fall in love with the process. Well, I'm going to tell you that I fell in love with Bret's process as Bret worked through me to kind of right, the situation that went on. So I won't spoiler alert, and I won't give you any more. I'll let Bret help me tell the story. So here we go. All right, everybody. So as promised, I have Bret here. Bret made the long trek in from Ohio as we gear up, and we're going to head west early in the morning. Yeah. Early in the morning after our 4 a.m. workout. We got to get that in.
Got to get that in.
But so for everyone that doesn't know, Bret Ayers, photographer extraordinaire, videographer, content creator, brand marketer. What am I missing?
All the fun stuff.
And very, very good friend of mine, and so I'm really excited to have Bret on here.
Yeah.
But more importantly, I think Bret has a very cool story to share about his dog Timber. And so, Bret, before we get started here, you can probably do a better introduction of yourself. Kind of tell us, maybe leading into how we met, but how did you get into the outdoor industry, which ultimately led to us meeting and from there?
For sure. Yeah. So from Coldwater, Ohio, a little town in west central Ohio. Been waterfowl hunting ever since I was a little kid. My dad was a waterfowler. I was lucky that he got me involved at a super young age, and he belonged to this goose farm club. So to speak. There were so many guys, that was right next to a refuge, so the hunting was really good. And, I just fell in love with it. And all through, when I got where I could go out myself, I went out every chance I could, at 16 years old, driving myself around, scouting, doing all the work, doing all the fun stuff, and just loved it. And, one thing I really loved was the communication with the birds. Mm-hmm. And I was a mediocre caller, through high school and out of high school. Just, I really didn't put forth the effort, so to speak. But I was really intrigued by the language. And I met Fred Zink. I think it was 1997. Actually, it was 1998. And I heard him blowing a goose call at a waterfowl festival. And I was like, man, I want to sound like that. He just sounds like all these different geese. I want to do that. And just went up, introduced myself, ended up buying a Tim Grounds half breed from him. And I had a 45-minute drive to work every day. So I spent 45 minutes driving with my knee, learning to blow this goose call. And I went to Freddie's house a few times. He helped me out, would give me some tips and, give me kind of the path. But, I took that path and made it a long trip, and just kind of I got my skills to where I started to sound like multiple geese. And so then it turned into Freddie's, he's like, man, you should get in some calling contests. I'm like, I don't know about doing all that. But so anyhow, I ended up going to Burlington, Iowa. Was the very first show that I actually went to out with Freddie. And he's like, hey, I'm going to pay your entry fees. You get in there. He goes, the best thing for you to do is go in there, do what you can, and get cut, sit in the audience and listen and learn. And that's what I did. So long story short, I was fortunate enough to win a few contests and just continued, met a lot of people, had a lot of relationships through that, and stay involved in the outdoor industry, and worked in the outdoor industry as a product designer and a content creator for the last 18 years. So, it's just something that I have a passion for, and, I've passed it down to my kids, and just, it's what I live for.
So first off, totally missed, and I don't know how I missed in your introduction, the calling aspect, competitive caller, and fantastic, fantastic hunting caller, because for those of you that have been in the field, there's a very big difference between competition calling and calling in the field hunting.
Yep.
And some people can't turn that on and off, and you do a very good job of that. So a couple things I didn't know about that story. First off, didn't know that a half-breed was your first call.
Yep.
Awesome call.
Yep.
It's so funny that because as you know from an urge from you, and I'm now back to blowing grounds, which was my first call was because I had no pennies at all. I scrounged everything together. Was a Super Mag, a polycarb Tim Ground Super Mag.
Great call.
And that's how I learned. But it's what I didn't know is Freddie paid your entry fee.
Yep.
For that first
did.
one. So I've had a similar experience with Fred, and I've just watched from afar as he embraces a lot of new people. I don't know Fred on a personal level. We know each other because there's been many times that I've been speaking and he comes off and I'm after him, or vice versa. And so we naturally talk a little bit that way. But I've always had that kind of vibe about him, that we need more people like that, right?
For sure.
I mean, so many people. I would say in the call industry is a little bit like this. I'd say the dog industry is extremely like this, where someone comes to you wanting to be mentored, wanting to be guided, wanting to be, helped and learn knowledge. And so many people are so apprehensive and guarded to actually give it, right? And it makes it tough. And I've always admired, Freddie, about that. Now, there certainly has to be a two-way street there. Like I'm sure you did, a lot of things you didn't mention in that story with helping him or going to, build calls or put guests together or whatever it is. And that's one thing that, for us in the dog industry, a lot of people reach out and they're like, how do I get involved in this? Or, I'm really interested in training. How do I do this? And I always tell people, you got to find a mentor. You got to find someone to learn under, but you got to make it worth their while. Like very few people are going to say, here, I'm going to give you all the knowledge that you want for free, and then go run with it and go create a business that you'll likely be right down the street from me and compete with me, right? And that's just how these dog guys, tend to think. It's just the reality of it. And so I always tell people, make it worth their while. But then the other side of it is the work ethic, and again, knowing you probably did a lot of these things to earn that trust. But from a dog standpoint, very few people are willing to put in the work to say, like, to actually go shovel kennels, right? To actually do the dirty work that no one wants to do in order to be there. In my experience, a lot of times what we've had people that they want the knowledge, they want to come learn. But what happens is we start at 4 a.m.
Yep.
They want to roll in at 8:30, stretch their legs, sit down with a lawn chair, and then just, ask questions and do everything at their time. It's not a very productive way, to get something like this done. So anyway, just a little piece on the dog side of it. So, so then, take us through kind of your next phases as you got into the outdoor industry.
Yeah. So, I really started getting into taking pictures. So getting into photography, and I did some things for Avery Outdoors. I was a product designer for them, and I did a lot of photos, of product photos and some lifestyle photos. And really, my mother was a photographer. She was an artist. So her minor, she went to an art school, and her minor was in photography. So she, back then was 35 millimeter. And I just, I took a photography class in high school, but, I liked doing it, but it wasn't, it was more, I just had other things, that I liked to do, more back then. So, but once, my passion and my hobby of waterfowl, and then I started taking pictures of birds in flight and stuff like that, and seeing some of the things that you capture, it's like, wow, that's cool, and then you capture these images that you can keep forever. And then, obviously when I started having kids and getting my kids in the field, I started capturing, telling the story of my family hunting, and, just pictures that I can show my grandkids down the road, of, look, this is what your mom or this is what your dad did, when they were your age. And, as we all know, the hunting industry in general it's hurting a little bit, and, whatever we can do to get, younger people into it, that's a huge step. So, but yeah, so I product designed, I worked for Lucky Duck, did some product design for Lucky Duck, and traveled around and met a lot of people, and did some photography for them, do some photography for the likes of, Yeti and Sitka and rig 'em right. Of course, Riverstone Kennels, and so Kent Cartridge, and so yeah, just built these relationships through the years, and that's kind of got me to where I'm at today.
Mm-hmm. What I think is really cool about that is, so the way that you described the camera and being in the field and how it took you to, now it's not about pulling the trigger, it's about capturing the moment. I'd say that's a lot of how we as dog handlers look at being in the field, right? It's not about killing the birds. Killing the birds is a necessity, mean to an end to ultimately get what we're there for. No different than really you and your photography stuff, right? But at the end of the day, it's about the dog, and it's about the retrieve, and it's about the relationship. And so it was interesting. I took a note here as you were talking of basically the camera was your dog at the time.
Correct.
That was really neat.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, that's just something that even today, even this year, I haven't pulled the trigger a whole lot. I'd rather, I take Mason out, and even when I go with buddies, I'd rather be behind the lens sometimes. And I've been fortunate to been on a lot of good hunts, and yes, it's fun, right? When you get a big flock of mallards, finishing through the trees, or a big flock of honkers, that are back flapping in the decoys, coming up and seeing them go, oh crap, get me out of here, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Right. But it's also cool to capture that from behind everybody, to go, look at this, and everybody's, oh, that's awesome.
Right.
That's cool. So yeah, it's just, as I got older, it just, that became more of a priority to me than actually pulling the trigger itself. So
yeah, it's neat how our priorities change
for sure
over the course of our life, right?
Yep.
Okay, so I want to get into as we go towards the dogs, right? So I want to talk about Timber. That's ultimately what we want to talk about here, is kind of your journey with her. I think it's a super cool story. I think there's a lot that people can take and learn from this story. I think there's a lot of really good, good points in there. But what led you to getting a Riverstone Kennels dog in the first place?
The biggest thing was when I met you and Whitney, was it be 4 years ago at SHOT Show? I met you at the Sport Dog booth, and
were you there for Sitka at the time?
I was there for Sitka, working for Sitka at the time, and I think I went over there for one of their after close to the closing show cocktails, and where they kind of bring in some people that and I'd taken some photos for Sport Dog as well. I'd been doing some stuff for them too, so went over there, and we started talking, and we just, you and I clicked, and we just started a lot of things we could relate to, and so and then I started doing a little studying and doing a little research of just because I just met you, of you and what you've done and your accomplishments and your kennel, and obviously the dogs that you had, and so, and that led into conversations between you and I of, hey, I'd like to. I'd always had English dogs, right? I always had, I had American labs. I never had a British lab. So, I'd had, just like you, early in age, you hear different stories of how they're, they don't have the drive, and they don't have this, and they don't have that, and they got these big blocky heads, and, but, that was all hearsay to me. I never had the experience with one to go, oh, hey, maybe this changes my mind. So hearing you and talking to you and your experiences and the things that you, from Easton to Brock to, it's like, this is with a family, and it's a family dog. I wanted a dog that was super chill at home, but had that big motor in the field. And that was the ultimate decision of, because having 4 kids and a wife, and we have, it's a house dog, she stays in the house. And so that just, that was a big, big deciding factor for us there. So
what, was there something, and I'm legitimately asking this because, and I'm legitimately asking a lot of these questions because we haven't prepped any of this stuff.
Right.
Simply because I can't remember. What was the Brock and Sage pairing? Like what was that?
So,
I mean, what led you to wanting that pairing? I guess is what I'm asking.
Right. So through conversations with you, when we decided, hey, I'd like to get a dog, you and I were talking, and you said, hey, I've got this litter coming up, Brock and Sage, that I think would be perfect for you. Brock, obviously, he's a big baby.
Mm-hmm.
We were just in Arkansas, and he slept on the couch with me. So,
right. Right. Everybody thinks he's this big badass, but if you really saw him,
yes, and it's funny because like Timber does the same thing. So it's like, it was just deja vu to me. Like, oh my gosh, your daughter is just like you. So. But, so you were just super pumped about this litter. It was the very first litter. You just obviously between Sage and what she's done and Brock and who he is, you were super pumped about this litter. And you're like, man, I think this is going to be the perfect fit for you. So, and that's what's cool, with you. And I didn't know this, prior, because normally, when I wanted to get a dog in the past, is like you called a kennel up or whoever, and said, hey, I want a dog. And then you go pick a dog, right? Well, when you and I started talking, I had that in my mind, and you're like, no, we'll pick one for you. And I'm like, what do you mean you'll pick one for me? And, now obviously being around you the last X amount of years, I understand why. And it's super cool that, you guys, because you guys are around those puppies every single day and know exactly what that dog's like. And then you get to know your clients and, you got to know me. So you're like, okay, this dog is the perfect fit for you. And she is. Mm-hmm. She's fun.
Yeah.
So.
And for those of you that don't know the background, so have you hunted with Brock up to that point? Or had trained with him? Have you seen him at all before you got Timber?
No.
Okay.
Because the very first time I had come out here was the pickup Timber.
Okay.
Because I brought Mason and Lauren with me. My son and daughter,
which I think Mason has doubled in size since that time.
But no, that was our first trip out here. Was
okay
for that. You and I just had phone conversations, and so we'd only known each other it was a year and a half, something like that. So
basically, the whole time you were on the list,
right?
Yeah,
exactly.
So what? So for anyone wondering, kind of where this came from and why I was so excited about this litter, so. Brock is Brock. I mean, Brock is he's special. He's very driven, very composed, very under control, and has the X factor. And what I mean by the X factor is that when you watch this dog, you cannot put your finger on why, but there's something that makes you say, wow. I don't know if it's the way he moves. I don't know if it's the way that he handles. And I'm saying aside from the stuff that he does an incredible, Bret, you were with when he did that, blind in North Dakota that was 700 some yards across the road, and there's just not many dogs that are quite frankly capable of something like that, right? Yeah. And so he has that, but there's something else. Like when we go to a test, and all the dogs run the same test, he's the dog that so many people will talk about, and so there's something special there. But I tend to push people away from Brock puppies when they call and they want to get a puppy, even though they've seen Brock on the Outdoor Channel and they heard about what he did on this hunt, or saw him at some whatever it is. Because as we kind of vet out puppy buyers and match them with the litters, I believe it's our job to have the best customer experience. So we need to match you with the right litter pairing, right? Well, there are very few people that need a race car. Right. Like most people need a Chevy Tahoe that looks great, is going to do everything you want it to do. It's going to get you to A to B, very safe, very user friendly. And we have dogs that are very much that bill fit. Brock's puppies rather. And Brock is too. He's a race car. I mean, he is that dog that, so as a handler, I need to be reading him every step of the way, right? So if he's getting offline, or if I need to stop him to give him a cast, I need to be thinking 5 steps ahead of when to stop him, because he's going to be there by the time I make that decision and move. And you have a dog more like a Bracken, who is my only dog that I've never failed a test with, period, over his whole lifetime. That's crazy. Never failed. But it's because he's way more forgiving.
Right.
He's not at that, just balls to the wall speed all the time. He's not that dog that's got flames coming out of his feet. He moves at a very good pace. But I can be off that day, as all handlers are. I can be off, and we're still there. If I'm off with Brock, we're having a train wreck, right? And so oftentimes I'll move people away from Brock puppies into a better fit. Like, I think Clyde is a tremendous dog, and I think he's right up there with Brock, but his puppies have tended to be a hair more forgiving with some of that stuff, right? Bud is an extremely good fit for so many people because he's got that wow factor. He's got that motor. He's got everything. I think he's a great, house and family dog, great personality, has a little bit of goofiness where Brock is very serious, much more serious all the time. A lot of, so where I'm going with this is that for our customers to have the best experience, I believe it's my job to fit you with the right puppies. Now, me, with my personality, like I would breed what we call fire with fire all the time. I want the fire breathers. I want the dogs that are our race cars.
Right.
But I realize that is a very small percentage of people. That's where Whitney does a great job tempering me back, going, look, just because that's what you want doesn't mean that's what everybody else needs. But every once in a while, we get someone like yourself that is the right fit. And what the right fit is to me is someone that is going to be very dedicated, is going to put the time in on a very regular basis, be disciplined in this routine, in working with the dog and giving the dog an outlet. Because when you take a race car and you don't drive it, there's going to be issues that come up from that, right? So you're going to see for a dog that has a lot of motor, a lot of potential, a lot of, I hesitate to say energy because I think naturally people kind of go to, he's bouncing off the walls and he's all over the place. That's not it at all. But they want a purpose. They want to go work. And when I funnel that energy, like Brock's a good example, like if I don't work Brock for a week, you're going to know it.
Right.
Like he's anxious. He's kind of edgy. He's like, what is going on here? He needs to work where, Bracken would lay up on his bed and be like, well, we're working today? No. Okay. We'll go back. And then, he'd be he's Mr. Chill.
Right.
And so, so you fit it, right? Like, major hunter, going to be out working a lot in the field, dedicated to getting the most out of this dog. There's so many very positive things that I think led me to this. But then Sage, on the other hand, Sage is my personal favorite female that I have ever owned. She has the motor. She has the drive. She actually ended up, how much does Timber weigh?
55.
So I think Sage topped out at like 48. I mean, she was tiny. But there was a period there that she was the best goose dog I had. I mean, when we'd have a rain out of honkers and we'd have a cripple staying on the decoys, all my buddies would be trying to get out of their blinds going, whoa, wait. And everybody got their phones out because this little ball of yellow fur was going to turn into a middle linebacker really quick, and she'd hit that thing going 100 miles an hour. So she just had, again, those X factors. So that's why I was so excited about this. There's no guarantees in there's no guarantees in animals,
For
right?
sure.
There's no guarantees in people. There's no guarantees when you are pairing dogs together that it's going to work out like what you wanted it to. But in this case, yeah, I think it did.
Yeah.
And so it's really neat. And so you have Timber, you bring her home as expected. You stay dedicated on the training. So take us through that first year and a half. Like what did you do leading up to that first season that you actually hunted her?
Right. Yeah. So we brought her home in June. So obviously the first year was out because she was going to be way too young. And so we started, with obedience. She did really good with obedience. She was just super easy. She just wanted to please. And so she was very easy, to please. She sometimes would push a little bit, but, she crushed her obedience, went through that. Obviously, through the winter, we still worked on obedience depending on what the weather was. We were throwing some bumpers in the yard. And then once spring came, she really started to progress, and she progressed really quick. And, we went from, the foundation to the intermediate training, and then we even peaked in some of the advanced stuff, and she was just crushing it. I mean,
You did more than peaking.
yeah,
you guys were hopping in there really good.
There was I remember in the summertime of that following year when she was 1 year old. And I remember you're like, hey, let's try the 5-point drill. Mm-hmm. I was like, all right. So we kind of set up, and she just like, boom, boom, boom. And you're like, holy cow.
Yeah. Which for those of you who don't know, a 5-point is, message me if you want some info on the 5-point drill. It is my absolute favorite lining drill. And lining drills are when we're taking a dog and teaching them, hey, when we point you in the direction we say back, you run a straight line until you get your reward. So
right.
Didn't mean to interrupt.
Yeah, no. Yeah, absolutely. So, she was well progressing, and, we had shot all summer over her, launchers, shot poppers. She was just crushing everything. And, she was well ready, leading in the teal season.
And well ahead of her age as far as where you'd want her to be.
Well ahead of her age. I was super excited. There was a lot of work. Like you said, I worked that dog every day. If it was for 15 minutes, it was for 15 minutes. If it was 2 sessions at 20 minutes, it was 2 sessions at 20 minutes. Just depending, obviously reading her, didn't push her. Just we did our thing. If we had a bad day, we got back in the truck and we went home. So I didn't push anything. I just let her be herself. And she went from below she climbed that mountain fast. Mm-hmm. And it was fun to watch, mm-hmm. And as a trainer, it was like, man, I smiled every night, it was like, I couldn't praise her enough. And she, leading in that first season, I was super excited, mm-hmm. for what was to come.
Yeah. Well, I remember getting those messages from you. I mean, videos and, the messages of how great she was doing, which, you were smiling, but it made me smile too, right? Because, again, that's what we're trying to breed for, right? A dog that is very intelligent, is trainable, is very natural. And for those, I, as a trainer, always want those dogs to come in because it makes my job a heck of a lot easier,
Right.
But so we're, at this point, we're going into teal season. She's 1.5 years old.
Yep.
And she's going into her first hunts again, over-prepared, well ahead of her age, well ahead of where you'd expect her to be training.
Yep.
Crushing it.
Yep.
Then what?
We had 4 straight days of absolutely nothing. So I was all excited. And living in Ohio, it's hit or miss. Like sometimes I've got a teal spot that's pretty dynamite. So I was pretty hopeful, to go out. But I'm not in a huge migrating, so sometimes when they're there, they're there. If they're not, they're not. And so we went out the first day and put her on her place board, all excited. Shoot time comes in and nothing. And the second day comes and put her on her place stand and nothing. And the third day comes around and nothing. And it was finally on the 4th day. It was just Mason and I. And slow morning. And this time she's sleeping on her stand.
Because she has no idea.
She has no clue. She has no idea. And, that was a learning thing for me as well. But, we had one single come in. And we stood up and shot multiple times. And she jumped up and she freaked out. And she went out, got the mark like she was supposed to. But when she come running back, she ran away from me. She didn't recall. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, what is going on? And like I was calling her and she wouldn't come to me. And I was like, like, what the heck's going on? Mm-hmm. Where's this dog that's recalled? And, I don't even, she's just there. Mm-hmm. And now she's hiding in a, clump of brush or willow trees and not wanting to come to me at all. Mm-hmm. And so we stopped the hunt right there. And I took her home. I gave her a couple days off. I had actually called you and said, hey, dude, this is what happened. And I made the mistake of the first few days, I should have had a bumper in my blind bag. period. And that was my mistake, especially when nothing's going on, at least let them know, hey, this is what we're out here for. And I made the mistake not doing that. So, and I paid for it. And so I gave her a few days off. I was like, all right, I'm going to take her out. I'm going to take a shotgun. I know she's not, and that's why I mentioned earlier shooting over her. I know she's not gun shy because I've shot over her all summer long. I've launched, launchers over her all summer long. She's never once freaked out. So I know, at least in my head, I'm like, she's not gun shy. And so a couple of days go by, and I just take her out for a training session. And I took her out with a gun with just a popper, threw a mark, boom. She went out, got her mark, and went running by me and went back to the truck. And I'm like, trying to do everything. And this girl, like I said, she wants to please. So she just wants to come up back to you and that's all she wants to do is please. And she runs to the truck and she's like, you could see her head keep looking back at me like she's just freaking out. Like, what the heck is going on? So I gave her a couple more days, called you, told you the same thing. So a couple more days and took her back out. This time I put her on a 30-foot lead and or a 30-foot check, and she same thing. She went out, picked it up, but when she went to recall, she wanted to run by me. Well, obviously with the check, I was able to bring her back. Couple times she would come back, no problem. Couple times she wanted to run past me. So finally, you and I talked. You're like, you need to get her up here. Let me put her on a bunch of birds, and where I can do it. Like, I just didn't have the time where you had the time. So we brought her up here, and you had her. I think you had her for a month, and you just, we talked every other day or whatever it was, and you were just putting her on birds. And I know it was funny. I think after the first week you had her, you called her. It's like, dude, there's nothing wrong with your dog. She's fine. We're shooting over her. She's just as happy as can be. And I'm like, wait a minute. That's not the same dog that I brought up there. What did I do? So now as we talk, does it become situational? Does it become me? Is it something that I did? Or is it, is she associating camouflage or what's she associating to making her think that she's scared? So month goes by, she's crushing it up here. I think you said maybe one time or two times she did act a little goofy, but after that, shooting all around her, no problem. I came, picked her up, thinking, okay, we sat her out that whole entire season, which that's a super hard thing to do as a hunter. But I knew that was best for her. It wasn't about me. It's all about her. So I was willing to sacrifice that 1 year of hunting to hopefully have a lifetime with her of hunting. So
let me pause you right there.
Sure.
Because I think there's some really important things that I want to jump in here and grab, but keep that thought, right? So, I first off, I think it's super astute that, looking back, hindsight 2020, you would have brought a bumper in your blind bag just simply to tell her, well, this is what we're doing out here, right? Because I think we've both kind of come to the conclusion that led to a lot of this, of her just going out, basically sunbathing, having no idea what was going on. And after the fourth time, and she's pretty content that I'm going to go out here and just chill and hang out. Then all of a sudden, the firing squad goes off, freaks her out. So one thing that I wanted to ask is, when you were reading her, and in that first time, that first situation, and you're going, what the heck's going on, right? And then that evolves into the training sessions that are going very similar. Like, are you reading fear? Are you reading uncertainty? Are you reading, her being disobedient? Like, what are you reading in that?
The obedience was fine. What I was reading is there was a little bit of fear in there and just more uncertainty, I guess. It was the fact that, because she'd go out, if she was gun shy, she would, as soon as that popper went off, or, she would take off. But she would go out to the mark, pick up the mark, and then as she's coming back to me, she just keeps looking at me like, yeah, something's not right and I don't like it. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to go back to some place I know I'm safe. And that was her kennel at my truck. So, we had even talked like, okay, let me park my truck somewhere and let me walk 3 miles or whatever, get far away from my truck and see if that works. So we tried different things. So, something was telling her to be scared, but I don't think she knew what she was to be scared of, So, yeah, I don't want to say it was fear. I just think it was uncertainty more than anything. Because, like I said, I don't, if she was scared, or if she was truly scared, she probably ran to the kennel right off the bat. She would have never ran out to her, at least I don't think. She would never ran out to that mark. So she knew that, okay, hey, I'm going to go get this reward, but when I'm coming back, I don't know if I want to go back to you. I want to go back to, I know someplace for sure I'm going to be safe. So something was telling her that, hey, I just need to go back here, not where I know I should go.
Right. Well, so during this whole situation, from my point of view, it was very frustrating for me. I know it was frustrating for you, and I know it's frustrating for so many people that sending messages or emails or messages off Instagram, whatever it is, on, hey, I'm having this issue with with my dog. Now, you and I had the luxury of you could text me, you could FaceTime me, you could send me videos. But that's not always, I don't want to say it's possible, because it's possible, but the time consumption, if I had so many people doing that, would be daunting.
Yes.
And so it's not always a luxury that we have. I always try to help people, but the hard part is when I'm not there seeing the dog, I can only help so much. Like even videos, even even a FaceTime video, like it's just so difficult because you're not there, you can't feel it,
right.
And so it's very difficult to kind of decipher. And so that's why I had ultimately said, hey, I need to get her up here, right?
Right.
And then the frustration was probably reversed, right? Because I'm putting through all this stuff. I'm calling you, going like, dude, she's crushing it. She's awesome,
right.
And then we had to start asking the tough questions, right? And I remember the first time I asked you this question, because once in a while I have to ask this question, and I wouldn't say it's quite 50-50, but I'd say it's pretty close. That when I ask, do we think that this could be a you thing? I'd say about half the people take that very offensively. They get defensive, and we're not gonna get anywhere.
Right.
Or they think about it. Most of the time it's not, right? But they think about it and go, okay, well, if it is, what could have happened? And I was very thankful that you did the latter, because we started thinking about the things you talked about, right? So, is it camouflage? Like, I remember going out, getting in camouflage. I remember getting in a blind. I remember trying to simulate everything I could possibly do. I remember getting in a boat. Like we went down. You have a little private 30-acre lake on our farm where we keep a duck boat, and I remember going in there, zipping around the lake a few times with her, coming back, and she was fine. Like I could not replicate it, and that it was frustrating for me because I can't work on it if I can't see it.
Right.
I know it's frustrating for you because obviously you're like, dude, it's there. I promise you. Right. And I knew it was there. So it was a very difficult situation due to what she was showing us, or in this case, not showing us.
Right.
And but where I'm going at with this is that, and why I ask you what you saw and what you read, it is so important to read the dog when things are going wrong. And because what you read is oftentimes going to dictate how you handle the situation, or once you pull the plug like you did, how you handle the training to overcome what had happened. So I know, you and I, nobody else really knows this, but you and I do a lot of kind of, life coaching, if you will, together. We're both big, Jocko Willink fans. We really like that, that discipline and that leadership and extreme ownership and all that. We hold each other accountable. 5 days a week, we send each other messages, making sure we're staying accountable. Working out minimum 5 days a week. We do a lot of stuff that way to keep discipline. One of the things that I think is really neat in Extreme Ownership, the book, he talks about how good leaders can almost slow things down, read the situation, and stay calm. And so he talks about this, obviously, being a SEAL in a military situation. But he talks about how in a military situation, when bombs are going off and bullets are zinging by your head, the leaders that would get on the radio, and in their voice you could tell something was wrong, those leaders never lasted or just didn't make good leaders. Because once emotions rise, you can't effectively read the situation.
Right.
You cannot make the right decision. And I think, bringing it back to a dog situation, we're never in that, right? Like we're not in that extreme of a situation, but few people are. But when you bring it into your situation, right? So, or anyone's situation that you're in the field, something with the dog is going wrong. Most people, one, get flustered and frustrated. The second thing is they get embarrassed.
Right.
Because they've put all this time, all this money into the right puppy, the time into training. I've probably talked this dog up, which is the number one rule. If you go on a hunt, don't talk the dog up before you go on the hunt. It's a surefire way to make the dog embarrass you. But where I'm going with this is that if you can slow things down and read the situation, you're going to be able to better take that home, understand what actually happened, and fix it. If you get emotionally wrapped up, if you get embarrassed, if you get flustered and frustrated, if you start MFing the dog and you're cussing, you are never going to understand what truly just happened.
Right.
And if you don't understand what just happened, how can we fix it? We see this all the time at the kennel, and it's incredibly frustrating when someone calls and they need something fixed. It's almost always out of emotion. So just a point that I would make in here is in a situation that is less than ideal, that is completely going sideways, the more you can just stay collected, keep your cool, and read the dog, the more successful you're going to be.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, and like during those training sessions after that hunt, I didn't push it. When she ran back to the truck, I packed my stuff up and I went back to the truck. I wasn't going to push it. And, was I frustrated? I'll 100%. I was frustrated, just because, you have all this work in and all of a sudden this one thing and, through a few phone calls, it was just hard to determine. And, then I started, like you said, it's like, is it me? What did I do? I've never laid a hand on this dog. I'm not that guy. So, what? She's a big baby at home, but as soon as you open that kennel door, man, she's like zoom in there, open her up. She knows what's going on, and she loves the work. And now all of a sudden, she goes out and picks up this bird, and then runs back to her kennel. Like what? What happened? Where did I turn wrong at? And so. Yeah, I was frustrated, but, I never took it out on her. I just looked at the whole situation like, all right, how are we going to fix it? Well, let's find the root cause, and then let's get it corrected. So, yeah, it was, and then, obviously you're super excited because you got a dog that's doing so well. Now all of a sudden hunting season goes, screeching halt. Mm-hmm. Like, all right, now we got to wait till next year.
So a lot of people listen to me talk about sitting your dog out that first season. That first hunting season, you sit it out because they're not ready.
Right.
We just had a situation here down in Arkansas about a month ago that we were hunting with a group of people. The other dog that was out there was a younger dog, and we're in a spec feed, boom, 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 birds fall. Actually, I think only like 2 birds fell. It was really poor. But the young dog goes out there and is all over the place, right? Big decoy spread, running all over the place. And, the guy's tweet, 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 tweet. The dog doesn't know what a whistle sit is.
Right.
He doesn't know what a cast is. He is completely losing it out there. And the longer he's out there, the faster he's running and the more he's out of control. And you can just see the wheels coming off. And the guy keeps looking back at his buddies, and he's like, he doesn't know hand signals yet. He doesn't know what whistle sit is yet. And I'm sitting here going, all that you've done now is create hurdles that were unnecessary to create that you are now going to have to overcome.
Right.
Because you can go back and work on that stuff this summer, but you come back to this spec feed, he's going to look at, wheels are coming off. I'm all over the place. I'm excited. It's just a natural memory recall for these dogs.
Right.
And so, where I'm going with this part of it, I guess, is you had already done that. So you picked her up in June. Well, that means she was born 2 months previous to that.
Yep.
Right? So whether it be April, May, June, or
she was born in May.
So May. So we take May. So we go, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December. So she's 8 months old.
Yep.
Right? A lot of people would hunt a dog at 8 months old. So you have already sat out the one season. You are now sitting out the second season.
Yep.
That had to have been super frustrating.
Yep.
And then this is where my admiration for you grew a lot through this, because especially after coming out at the other end of it, I'm trying to say this without saying the F-bomb. The mind screw that had to have been for you to go from this dog is about the best 8-month-old dog that you've ever seen to here.
Yep. We went backwards.
I mean, incredibly backwards.
Yep.
So, I talk a lot about falling in love with the process, but I fell in love with your process through this. Like you're obviously set on the dog and how we're going to take these steps back. None of this happens without you handling it this way,
right.
And so you did a great job on it, but I'm not going to spoil the end of the story here. So go ahead.
Yeah. So basically, we set out that whole hunting season. So we start training again, in spring. And, I did some obedience stuff through the winter. I just didn't push her. I just wanted to give her some time off. Let's clear her mind and let's start over. So, and like we mentioned earlier, she went backwards. She regressed. And, so I worked to get her back to where she was at. Again, she was crushing it all the way up till I didn't teal hunt a whole lot. I had a lot of things going on this year, so I didn't take her teal hunting. So her first hunt this season would have been the youth hunt, which was the beginning of October, and she was back to pretty close to where she was the previous issues. I've been shooting over her again, all these other things, and no, not one time did she ever run back to the truck. So I'm like, all right, we're over it, right? Take her out on this youth hunt. It's Mason, my son, and then it was a veterans hunt too. So I got a buddy that's a veteran, and he was out there and got the decoys set. They get in the blind. Her and I park the boat. We're walking up to the blind, and they start shooting. Dropped I think a couple teal or something. She marked them. Timber swam out, picked the teal up, and swam away from me. And I went, my heart went from excitement to, it was in the bottom of the lake. It's like, here we go again. What's going on? So it's across the channel. So I wade across this channel. She's on this, at this point, actually, I don't even know where she's at. So I had her collar on her, but at this point, I didn't want to do anything situational. So I didn't want to keep nicking her or, zapping her I shouldn't say zapper, but, nicking her to get her the recall. And then she'd show up at this bank and then she'd run off again. And so I didn't know if she was, if she was a quarter mile away from me. I had no idea where she's at. She'd got in this woods and she was gone. And so I wade across there and get up there, and there she is. She's like 30 yards in this woods, sitting behind this log. Timber here. She's just looking at me. I'm like, Timber here. And she'd take a couple steps, and then she'd turn around, go back. I'm like, Timber here. And again, I'm not giving her any pressure, nothing. Just trying to coax her back. And finally, I coaxed her back. So we go back across, and as we get all set back up, Drake Mallard comes in. Boom, they shoot it. Timber. She jumps in the water, swims out, gets it, swims back over to across the channel. Like, what is going on? So at this point, I'm like, she's done. I got to get her out of this situation. So I wade back over there, get up. She's in the exact same spot. She had this little hiding spot that made her she was comfortable at. And same thing, timber here, fetch it up, because the Drake Mallard was sitting there, the green winged teal was sitting there. So she brings the Mallard finally to me. She got halfway, and then you could see her kind of look at me, and then she turned around. And that's, like I said earlier, it wasn't her. She wants to be by my side all the time. And so we called the hunt, and I took her back home, and I called you. Is like, man, she's doing it again. And at that point, you're like, okay, it's got to be something situational. Was it the boat ride? Was it that particular blind that we were in? Was that the particular place that she was sitting in? What was she associating that was telling her to be scared? And it's like, man, I don't know. It's back to, is it you? Is it something that? And at that point, I really started thinking. I was like, man, is it me? And at that point, all this time that I put into this dog training, because you had her for bird gun intro, and you had her after the first issue, but I did all the other training myself. And all this time I was like, she might end up a house dog, and that's a sinking feeling. Like, this dog was absolutely crushing it at 8 months old, and now I might have a house dog. And there was a lot of blame on myself. Like, man, what? I couldn't sleep at night, like replaying all the stuff in my head. Like, what went wrong, And so we basically, I sat her again. And obviously this was the beginning of October. You and I went to North Dakota towards the end of October. And you're like, bring her along. If we can get her on, maybe a hunt or something that's just me and you control the dog. And obviously through this youth hunt, I didn't shoot, so I was working the dog. So I didn't, I didn't call, I didn't do anything. I was just working the dog. So, but you're like, let's get her up there, see if we can get her on one hunt, just you and I. I'll shoot one duck. This has to be one duck, and we'll see what happens. So, but we didn't get that chance, but we ended up going out. If you remember right, we went out for a training session one afternoon. I was like, man, the only thing that I can associate this with is multiple gunshots. That's just something that I couldn't train for, was just the big barrage. You get a group of ducks come in, or even sometimes a single, people miss. And so I couldn't duplicate that in training. And so that's what we did. And that very first retrieve, she took off on us. And so you and I stopped the training session. We walked down the road a little bit, got away from the area that we were training at, and just
let's not to interrupt you. Let's set up this training session.
Okay.
Just for everyone at home that's trying, because this was a very intentional and elaborate setup as far as we're going to go fix this. Right. So set that up.
Yeah. So we went out to, because she's hunted over water all this time. She hadn't hunted over any land. So let's try to put her in the exact situation that she was supposedly scared, right? So we went out to a little flooded cornfield and set up where I just ran her. You threw the mark. And then we had two guys that shot multiple times, and then I released her. So a little flooded field and off the road a little bit. And so the very first one threw the mark, she was on it. She was antsy, ready to go. Boom, 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 boom. And Timber released her, ran out to that mark, picked that thing up, looked back at me, and ran back to the truck. And you're like, all right, stop right there. So we walked, 100 yards away from that situation, down this road. It's like, let's just throw some bumpers. And the very first bumper, threw it, she wanted to run. And then I remember you blocking her. And then, we got that, started building that confidence of, trying to get her to come back to me. Knowing, you block her to get her back come to me, and she would. So,
and when I'm blocking her, I'm just getting in between her and the truck. Right?
Correct. Yeah, because she wants to go back to that truck because she knows is safe, because she was in the kennel and that she loves being in the kennel. So, so we do that multiple times, get her to where she was coming back to me. It's like, all right, let's go back to the situation. So, and what we did is we took her collar and we put her collar on the side of her neck where the truck was at. It's like, all right. It's like, same situation. We had two shooters. You were throwing a mark. I was running her, and I had the collar. And you're like, when she wants to start running for the truck, just nick her and just push her away from that truck. And so very first one, boom, 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 boom. She starts running towards the truck, and this is all praise. Like, Timber, here, girl, just trying to be excited, trying to get her to come back. And she started running the truck, nicked her. She came right back to me. So Did it again. This time I think I nicked her again. She started running that. I think by the third or fourth time, there was no nicking. She was just coming right back to me with all the shooting. So we did that multiple times, and we called it a day. And, still at that point, there was uncertainty. It's like, okay, there's a situation. Is this, did this fix it? Wasn't for sure. So come back to Ohio. Our season opens up. Take her out, and it's slow. She gets on her place board. It's warm. Don't have many birds, and she's laying down on her place board. I thought, here we go again. But this time, I was smart and I remembered my bumper. So every once in a while, just when things were slow, would throw some marks. So I remember the first day it was me and Mason and another buddy. We had a group of wood ducks come in. We knocked down 3 wood ducks. She had them marked. Timber. Jumps in, swims out, comes right back to her place. I was like, dude, if you would have seen my smile on that first one, I was like, perfect. This is it, She gets back up on her place board, drop. Timber jumps in, goes get her second mark. Comes back, brings it to hand, gets out. She's steady right back on, she's locked in on the next one. Timber, she drills a triple. I mean, she went from running from me to her very first back to hand is a triple. And I'm just like, dude, I was glowing. Like, this is it. This is, I was just super pumped. And, of course, we never had any more retreat or any more ducks that came in after that day. But so then the next day, and it was just a very slow year in Ohio. And this is tough. Like I said, I don't live in Saskatchewan or the Dakotas, where we get, so, if it's not a push day or, the weather's not right, sometimes it can be slow. And so we did go a couple days where there wasn't a whole lot. She still wasn't quite like, locked in on the sky, watching birds work. She knew when I called, she was looking in the decoys. She's like, all right, I know something, when calling, usually something splashes in the decoys. And we shot a few days. We shot, some more ducks. And she brought them back to hand, no problem. But the biggest thing that really showed me that she was over her whatever she was afraid of or whatever fear that was in her head to saying, I don't want to go back there. I need to go here. I had shot a duck, and it landed right in the middle of that channel where she would swim to go to her safe place on that youth day. She swam to that thing, and it's right before she picked it up, I was like, hey, Timber, here, good girl, just praising the living daylights out of her because I didn't want her to even think about continuing to swim straight after she picked that up. She grabbed that duck, swam right back to her place board, or right back to her place, and boom. And I was like, all right, I think we're in the right direction now. And, since then, we went on, Mason and I had a couple other good days where we shot some ducks, and she was retrieving doubles and triples and all right back to hand.
Taking casts even.
Yeah. We went to, we hunted this little flooded, it was a little wetland. And this was a day I was like, I want to have a big day. Like I wanted to have like multiple ducks sitting in her lap. The biggest thing that she was not doing that I noticed, was just she hadn't quite figured out, the ducks are coming, circling around, coming in. She hadn't quite figured that out. She knew that there were, after shooting and stuff, that the look in the decoys that there was going to be a splash and she was going to go get her reward.
But naturally, because she hasn't had that time in the field yet.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah, she hadn't learned that, and that was a frustrating thing for me. And because some years are really good, some years are not really good. And obviously, this year the weather was warm. We didn't get the birds. It's January the 2nd, and we just left Ohio, and we're finally just now starting to get birds. So it's just a really slow year, and so she just from inexperience just didn't have that figured out. So we take her on this hunt that hopefully was going to be a pretty good duck shoot, and it ended up being a pretty good duck shoot. And so I'm not shooting. We got like 6 guys that are shooting. I'm just out. She's in her kennel on the outside of the blinds, and I'm out there with her. First ducks of the day is a pair of mallards, and they shoot this drake over the decoys, and this hen kind of gets out, and they shoot this hen. She probably goes 100 yards and falls, crippled. She was locked in on that thing. And I was like, do I send her on that or not? And she's just, those ears are perked, and she's just on her toenails like, come on, Dad, let me go. I'm like, okay, timber. Boom. Dude, she took a line, good, great water entry, swam across the water on the land, and then she started hunting. And there was a big hill, on where the duck had landed. There was a hill there, and the duck had landed on the other side of the hill. She didn't quite work to the other side of the hill. What happened was we started calling because more ducks were coming. Well, instinctively, she's like, well, I'm coming back to the decoys, So she comes back to the water's edge. I whistle set her as they're working these ducks, and she sits. Ducks don't finish, no shooting. So she's sitting there. I'm like, all right. And I gave her an angle cast back. Dude, she took that thing right to that hen mallard and picked it up. And this was another new experience. It was a cripple. Never had a cripple. And this thing's quacking and flapping its wings and, all kinds of stuff. And she comes running back, gets to that water's edge, and stops. I'm like, hey, timber here, And all of a sudden she turns around and like runs the other way. I'm like, oh no. What happened? And so I called her back, and she comes back without the duck, and I'm like, crap. So, I didn't freak out. I walked around. I was like, all right, we're going to make this a learning experience. I can't blame her because she's never had a live duck in her mouth. And this thing's making all kinds of noise. It was very much alive. So, it was kicking and flapping its wings. So I walk around the pond. I see the duck. So I line her up on a blind, send her to it. She goes, picks it up, praise her. She brings it right back to hand. All good. I dispatch the duck. I walk her back to the pond, set her down. I threw the duck into the pond, walked all the way back around the pond, back to where I was at by her kennel, and released her. Timber jumps right in, picks up that duck, swims back across. Everything was good. So we proceed to shoot. I think she had 14 retrieves that day. And we had another couple that she took great cast on. Even a couple of guys that we hunted with, she hunted with another dog, and he was actually he knew that Timber needed to have a big day. So, he was very respectful of, you just let her do the work. I'm just going to make him on her. And she had a big day, and she crushed it. And at that point, I was like, all right, I think, we're over this. So, and on that hen, she had never, in a hunting situation, in a training situation she had, but in a hunting situation, she hadn't swam water to land. And then there was that hill to go find that bird. But, and then the calling to bring her back. So that was a distraction to her. And then to sit there while the ducks are working and to give her that, that angle cast back, and she nailed it right to the duck. And, it was just that situation, was just with that duck being live. I think that's what she wasn't quite for sure what was going on. So, yeah, she had a big day that day. And, we went out a few other times on the lake and killed a few here and there, but nothing big. And then we went on the goose hunt the other day. And I remember I texted you, it was like, all right, going on a hunt. It's a flooded field. So there's ducks and geese, and she's never seen a goose. So actually on that duck shoot, we shot a goose, but it was very much alive. And I was not going to let her go get that goose because she had never seen a goose. The issues that I had leading up to this, it's like, I don't need to create any more issues. So I told my buddy, I said, go ahead and send your dog. So his dog ended up getting that crippled goose. So she had never encountered a goose until this past, it's today. Today is Sunday, so Friday. She's never seen a goose. And so I was excited, but I was a little nervous. Because I remember your text back, you're like, what are you nervous for? What are you nervous about? I'm like, well, I'm not really nervous. I'm excited, but I just, just through the things, there's just naturally there's that a little bit of uncertainty in my head of like, all right, I don't want to push things and put her in a situation where, something else may happen that I have to go backwards again. So, but yeah,
What was my response to you when you asked about the goose hunt?
After the nervous part, you're like, just go get it. Go have fun.
Didn't we say something about, I think I remember asking, is it a water hunt or a field hunt?
Correct. You did.
Right?
And it was both. And this wasn't my hunt. This was a buddy of mine's hunt. So I had no idea. When he said flooded field, I was thinking, like ankle deep water. Mm-hmm. That's what I thought. And then obviously we set up and there's dry field around. So I had no idea what the situation was going to be. The water ended up being much deeper than ankle deep. So, yeah, you had asked like, oh, is it dry or is it wet? Because, obviously if it's wet, it's easier. She can push it. If it's dry, she's got to pick it up and bring it back to you. And, so, and you're like, oh, well, let's not hold back. Let's see what happens, And you told me, you messaged me and said, because I asked you, it's like, any advice? And you're like, the biggest thing to do is, especially if it's on dry land, you get the first one. Don't let her get it. You pick it up, bring it back, and throw some marks for her and build that confidence. And so 3 geese come in right off the bat. First thing in the morning, over the water, 3 dead geese. And I'm like, all right, girl, it's your time to shine. Timber. And it wasn't, the water was probably chest deep for her. She was still standing when she got to the first goose. And she grabbed a hold of that thing, and it took her a couple different, and I was praising her. Come on, girl. And she picked that thing up and brought it right back to me, like prancing. I was like, holy cow. This is a 55-pound dog, and this goose was probably 14 pounds. They were big geese. And she brings that first one back to me. And I'm like, and she turns around and locks in on the next one. Timber. Hard charging out there, right to the next one. Picks it up, comes back to me. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. And the third one, boom. So her first goose hunt, triple. I'm like,
just like your first ducks.
Just like her first ducks. Yeah. I was like, I was glowing. I know I sent you a snap, and then I think I sent you a video, and I was ecstatic because, it was a situation where geese are obviously intimidating, right? Especially for a littler dog, and she didn't even hesitate. And at that point is when I knew, I was like, all right, we're over all this. She's understanding this. And we proceeded to shoot 15 honkers, and she had 15 goose retrieves, even in the dry field. We had some that fell back behind us, and they were blinds because we were facing the water, and they fell back behind us. And it's like one of them flocks that came from the front, you shoot, and some guys, turn around and shot some out the back. And so she retrieved some, the geese in the water. There was a couple geese in the water, and then I turned around and lined her up and, sent her both back on both blinds. And they were probably 75, 100-yard blinds. And I'm probably not that far, but 50 yards, somewhere in there, but crushed it and picked those things up in the dry field and brought them right back. So it just, from where I was at, 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, to where I'm at today, totally different dog. Mm-hmm. from from a year ago, from 6 months ago, or 4 months ago. She's a totally different dog. I mean, we hunted yesterday. It's Ohio's duck season closed today, but we traveled today, so we went out hunting yesterday. We got to our duck blind. She jumped right up on the blind, went right to her perch. I didn't have to tell her. She knew. And she went from laying down early in the season on that perch to she never laid down at all. She watching the sky the whole time. So yeah, there was, like I mentioned earlier, there was a time that I just thought that she was going to sit in my lap when I got off of work, and at home, and I was going to have to look for another duck dog, and and now she's crushing it.
So first off, how can you not smile at that story? I mean, you're sitting here smiling now, of course, but that's just one of those stories that you see why you have patience. Like, we talk so much about patience with our dogs and why it's important. We talk about discipline for ourselves, right? Like, keeping ourselves disciplined, not only to be disciplined with our dogs, but discipline in the routine of working with our dogs. I mean, there's so much that goes into it. But there's a question I want to ask you because I think it's really important. So you get over the hump this season. This is year 3 now, season 3.
Season 3.
So let's keep that in mind.
Yep.
Season 3. You get over the hump of the same blind situations that you were in before, right? And it's the same blind, right?
Yep, same blind.
So you get over that. And now you go to have our first big day, right? So now you're in a new blind, new people, new situation. And there was something you said that was really important, which is you did not shoot.
Yep.
Can you walk me through why and walk me through the thought process there?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I mean, number one, the biggest thing is, my attention needed to be fully on her. And, if I'm shooting, I can't keep my attention fully on her. So it's important, I wanted to make sure that, for one, if she had a tendency to break, or just anything, I just wanted to make sure that she had my full attention. So if I'm shooting, you don't get that because you're watching the birds, then you're worrying about your gun, and then you're hooping and hollering and, all that other fun stuff. And so keep my attention full on her. There was no reason for me to even think about shooting. Actually, most of the time this season, I haven't, especially if I go with a bigger group. If it's just Mason and I get my gun out. But for the most part, I work the dog. It's especially through what we've been through. It's really important for me to keep my focus on her. I don't need to worry about shooting. I don't need to worry about anything. I need to worry about her and the situation and making sure that she's doing everything that she needs to do. And it's been a process, but it's been fun.
Well, so the reason I ask that is because I think this is where the wheels could come off from a handler point of view. If you don't handle the dog properly in that, so now we're in a new situation.
Yep.
Now we're in a new blind. Now we're in all this new. We can't just assume that things are going to continue to go as well because we've now been comfortable in a different spot and different situation. And there is a serious temptation. This is where I think you just have to be honest with yourself. There's a serious temptation that if that gun is there, you're going to shoot it.
For sure.
Some people are not that. For me, I have my gun on every hunt, and it's actually really rare that I shoot.
Oh, yeah.
Now, part of this is because I'm trying to, film for Instagram. I'm trying to handle. I'm trying to, call. I'm trying to, call a shot. A lot of, so there's a lot going on, but I just don't need to.
Yep.
That's not the point of my life that I'm at right now. But for a lot of people, that's not the case.
Right.
And so if you're in that situation, I think just simply not taking your gun is a really big deal. And then, just kind of the obedience side of it, I think is something that we should go over real quick, just because you talked about everything that went wrong. one thing that was continuing to be right was that obedience foundation.
For sure.
Because you could make the argument, well, she wasn't being obedient when she was running away from you, but that's a fear, right? That is the flight mentality. Something is going on. She's nervous. She's avoiding a situation just because she's uncomfortable, right? But you never had an issue with her breaking.
Yep.
You never had an issue with her obedience. You never had an issue with her not wanting to heel, not wanting to recall, not wanting to set. Her obedience was there.
Yep.
The obedience continues no matter what situation we tend to find ourselves in. The obedience continues to be something that we can go back to. So let me hit rewind for 1 second because I want to talk you through that training situation from my point of view. Okay, so I'm going to go back to where we're trying to set up a multiple shot situation in the water, right? We're trying to do everything that we think is going on, and so we had live, not live, dead, real ducks that we had just shot that morning. And we go with this in mind. So, Bret, you and Timber at the water's edge. We have shooters on both sides. And no shot the first time. I just throw the duck, right? And it was totally fine.
Yep.
She was a little off, though. Like, you could tell she was looking around like, who's that? But we have 5 or 6 people there, right? So this is abnormal. Then when the multiple shots went off and there was just everything going on. She never looked at the shots. So just so, for everyone to be clear, she's not gun shy in that manner, right? Because multiple guns are going off right next to her. She's not flinching. She's not moving. She's steady. She's locked in. She's waiting for Bret's cue, Timber, to go. It was I think she truly believed that she was supposed to be afraid of something, but didn't understand what she was afraid of. And so that's why she was flying back to her safe spot, which in this case was the truck. So here's what I did from a training standpoint. If you think about, let's just think about, we're on a compass and we're looking north is the water. So we're on like a little road edge where we have the trucks parked that runs east-west. So we're looking north. So we have where Bret is stationed. We have a shooter to his left and a shooter to his right. So, east and west. When we threw that bird straight out in front, what happened is that duck, again, I'm trying to paint the picture here, when she went out to get that duck, the trucks were behind us to the right. Again, so if we're facing north, the trucks it'd be southeast of us. She would want to then go to those trucks. So the idea, and Bret kind of mentioned it, the idea with the e-collar was to push her to us. Okay, so a dog, just like a horse in a lot of manners, will always move away from stimulation. So when you give that correction, naturally she's going to move away from it, right? So the idea, so again, same situation, we're instead of throwing this bird to the north, I throw this bird northwest, and actually even err on the west, right? Because what happened was she had to then swim in front of Bret, go past Bret to get over to the trucks in her safe spot, right? So she is swimming past. And when she got to right in front of, or just before she got right in front of Bret, we said, Bret, recall and tap. And when she said, he said, here, and then tap that button, that literally, agree? Mm-hmm. Literally changed that direction of her to come right back to you.
Yep.
Right? Yep. And we did that over and over and over again. And we gradually made this more difficult to the point that we threw almost directly east, right in front of the trucks.
Yep.
And she went right there and right back. And so where I'm going with this is, one, the collar allowed us to do that, right? There's no way of communicating with her in that water, in that moment, otherwise, right? But again, she doesn't, we thought, we didn't believe she truly knew what she was being afraid of.
Right.
So what we needed to use our obedience and use that collar to convince her, I have to come back. Well, what happened when she got back? She had to do it again.
Yep.
And then she got to do it again. And then she's going, oh, wait, this is great. This is awesome, right? And whatever psychological thing she had herself psyched out on, we changed that for her.
Yep.
And that training session was so huge. And it was just, it was kind of that. Now, you had done a lot of work up to that. So it's not like that training session was like a magic wand moment and she's over. But a lot of work got to there.
Oh, yeah.
And then that was like, all right, we can finally push the snowball over the edge on the other side.
That was the peak.
Yeah.
Yep. That was the peak.
And it was a really powerful thing to be a part of, again, just because I had been through the last 2 years with you going through this, the hurdles, the peaks, the valleys. I mean, it was a roller coaster ride. But now, to have here the other day, you sending pictures and videos of her with geese, and I won't read the text messages, but it was like, dude, she just crushed a triple, and oh my gosh, and she's crushing this thing.
Yep.
And I could feel the excitement through those messages, and it was just really, it was a neat thing. And so there's a lot of reasons I wanted to tell the story. One, because it's a cool story. I mean, for anyone that has ever been involved in something even remotely close to that, it is a cool story to go through and show the other side of it, coming out the other side. But the other reason I really wanted to is because I've talked a lot about discipline. I've talked a lot about patience. I've talked a lot about the process. All these things came into play here. And to be very honest, most people wouldn't have done what you have done. Most people wouldn't have had the patience to step back. Most people would sit there and go, I paid X amount of dollars for a dog that is now doing this, right? It's not the dog's fault, right? There was an unfortunate circumstance, situation that caused this, right?
Yep.
Not the dog's fault.
Wasn't the dog's fault.
Right? I put all this time into training, now this. Again, not the dog's fault, right? So I think naturally people tend to want to find excuses. They want to blame the breeder. They want to blame the trainer. They want to blame the idiots that shot the blind down that caused this. They want to they're looking for someone else to blame. Okay, but at the end of the day, what you did is you took ownership. You said, I may not have intentionally created this. I may not have created this at all.
Right.
But it's my situation. I'm going to own it.
Yep.
There's no other way you would have gotten over that. There's no other way that you would have got to where you are today without that mental approach to it. Yep. And I think that's the biggest thing I wanted to get through with this story is that we have had so many situations with dogs coming in the kennel that aren't close to this. But it's amazing how quick people are to get flustered and get frustrated, and they want to pull the plug, or they I just have a house dog now, whatever it is, right? You're not working with robots. Yep. There's not a code you can punch in here to override what has happened and get. This is time. This is patience. These are animals. They're mental issues to work through. There's anytime you're dealing with a fear, it now escalates that much more. There's so much that goes into this, but it's always fun when you have a story like this that comes out the other side.
One of the biggest drivers for me is just her love. Her heart. That dog's she showed it, this past Saturday or Friday with all those geese. She'd never seen a goose, and geese that are big geese, her heart it's huge. Mm-hmm. She's got it, and I knew she had it at 8 months old, as quick as, and how much she loves to retrieve and please. And that was the biggest thing. It wasn't for me. It was for her. I didn't give up on her. There was no way, it was 100% all for her. And, we worked through it. We got through it. And now big smile. Big smile.
It's a story that I thought had to be told. And it's really, it's fun to see you guys, at where you are now. And just the patience. So for anyone out there that, is frustrated about, wow, Josh keeps saying, take that first season off to make it right. Bret had to take almost 3 seasons off. So don't be too hard on yourself. It's not for me. But anyway, I know we've talked about this, for quite a while now. I really appreciate you taking the time. I appreciate you, sharing the story. And maybe we'll be able to have a follow-up, timber episode here, in the future here as we kind of take around some more hunts.
Absolutely. So, no, I appreciate you having me on. And it's been a lot of fun. Been a Riverstone experience. It's been something else. So I can't wait for the future.
Yeah, all good stuff.
That's right.
Yeah, it's all good stuff. So awesome. Well, thank you guys for spending this time with us. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and we will talk to you next week. Bret and I are headed out to Montana.
Yes, sir.
So hopefully we'll have some good stories next week on out there. We're taking Solo to be able to
So-
sit and watch. He's not going to get to hunt. And then Brock. So hopefully good stories ahead. So have a great rest of your week, and we'll talk to you next week.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Leave us a review on iTunes, and a special thank you to Eukanuba, because without them, we couldn't do what we do here, bringing this information to you.